Welcome everyone to welcome you all to the Coronado Museum. My name is Vincent Rossi. I'm the coordinator of the Historical Society's Speaker Series. Thank you for coming today. Our speaker table is Tom Leech. We'll be getting his talk in a second. First, I just want to mention our next program will be Saturday, November the 14th. The subject will be From Stowe to Santee. The speaker will be Carol Crafts. I'd also like to alert you to our Coronado Historical Society's general meeting, which will take place on Monday, October the 19th at 2 p.m. And that's where we elect our officers. I believe that's still, nominations are still open for people, anybody who's a member who wants to submit nominations or ideas between now and that meeting. And I'll be giving a short talk at that meeting called On Webb Lake, Then and Now. So now without further ado, let me just, I'd like to give a brief description of the talk we're going to hear today from another person who's seen it, from a member of the Encinitas Rotary Club, who said, Tom Leech has a wealth of knowledge about San Diego. He shared his perspective with us, and even the longtime native San Diegans learned something that day. He is a wonderful speaker, and everyone in the audience is still singing his praises. And I have heard several remarks from various people who recommended Tom for our speaker series, and we're very glad to have him today. He is a coach, a career coach, and a writer and researcher, among other things, and a very good speaker, and we're looking forward to hearing from him today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Tom Leech.
Thanks, folks. I had to pay that fellow from the Rotary. That's the way it works. People who show up from time to time. Thank you for having me here. I did not even know of this place until about 6 or 8 months ago. I think we were here having a lunch right there, and wandering around. Whoa, this is a pretty neat little operation you guys have here. I've known people who live in RVs for years and years. I've had some business in this area. Hike a lot around here. RV is just loaded with trails that you don't have to go very far to get to, and I'll be sort of communicating about some of those today. I came out of, we were just talking to Pete and I came out 5+ decades ago from the state of Indiana. And I came here for 2 reasons. One, to work in aerospace. The company was General Dynamics, and some of you may have worked there, or you know that was the single largest employer in all of San Diego, other than the schools and the Navy and Marines, all that stuff. And hired in there. I didn't know a thing about this place. We didn't have too many deserts in Indiana, where I came from. We had no oceans. We had a lot of little lakes, but no surf, stuff like that. And no mountains. I think we had one, in my whole county, we had one little peak that was about 600 feet or something. So coming out here, there weren't too many obvious resources, except my company, General Dynamics, had what was called the Adventurers Club. And I thought, wow, that's kind of neat. They were all people after work, or weekends, mainly weekends, and they would take hikes, overnight backpacks, camping. I was able to join in and find out about this place because they knew. And pretty soon I started knowing a little more and a little more. I was able to take my daughter, and she got into the outdoors world. It worked out really well. I found I had to take a pal of hers. You take one child out somewhere and they think, are we home yet? When are we leaving? You get 2 or 3 kids and they're just having a great time. So that lesson I learned real early. So a few years ago, I've been writing a lot about outdoors. I became the outdoors editor for San Diego Magazine. They started the online edition. And I said, I've been writing for them for freelancing and a lot of things. I want to get a book out. And one of the easy ways is to become the editor of their magazine. Every month, online, I would write about a trail or a park, preserve, something going on in nature, particularly where you could get the kids out. And I'm still very strong about get the kids outdoors. It's so fantastic. And unfortunately, there's a lot of kids that maybe live in the different communities, but they don't get out that much. But so anyway, that led to the book, which is back there. I bought a few also. Outdoors San Diego, doesn't say right now, but it did. Outdoors San Diego, hiking, biking, and camping. So I'll be sharing with you, because this is a historical society, not especially the trails or the parks of where you can go to get fit and more fit and all that stuff, but the historical aspects of this county are really quite incredible. And as I keep finding out more and more, because all the time there's more and more to look at. So that's what I want to share with you today. And feel free if you got a question or comment, just kind of, let's see if we can have it. Hope we have some little time at the end also. Okay, there's the book. My partner Jack actually lives now in Rancho Santa Fe, but he's the bicycling guy. And we both worked at General Dynamics, which is how we got acquainted. I'm mainly the lead guy in the hiking and camping. So that's the book it's based on. Let's take a few categories as we go. And I'll be doing a little handout at the end to capture some of this stuff. Those who were here first, none of us were here first. We don't have that look unless you're connected with the Native Americans. So this particular site in Presidio Park in the heart of the Mission Valley is where a lot of digging has been done. And that's a statue that was created there. And it's still going on. And it's just a great spot. And there are other things that you see. And how many of you do get out of bed or have been out of bed in some of our drill? What do you call these little holes? Morteros, right. And they are here, that's Mission Trails, up in the mountains, the desert, so that they were here, and you know what the Morteros were? That's usually where the women would gather, and they would take the acorns and grind them. And after you did a lot, if you look at the size of that, or usually there were several, because it was women, you know, would go out there alone for 2 hours, just grinding them. Cronies, ladies, they were out there gossiping and all that kind of stuff. Usually it was in the shade, and not always. I don't know about this one in the desert, but that's the way it went in those days. Now, if you know, any of you know Tecolote, the park for Earth's first place, Hallelujah was preserved, because go back about 40 years, that was maybe just going to put more housing in there. Citizens fought again, and they decided not to do that. It became Tecolote Park, and it's got a whole bunch of entrances in it, very popular. The entryway is right off Interstate 5. So it's right there at the turnoff. The other way you go to SeaWorld, and this one. And that, they call it Tecolote Nature Center, that they've created just behind the one. It's like a museum in that visitor center. And then they've created a little village there that is what they actually had then. Okay, now that what I call the arrivals, the people who came here first. Who arrived here in 1542? Been getting a little press here. Cabrillo. Now, was Cabrillo Portuguese or Spanish? I mean, just like now, all of a sudden say, maybe he was really not Portuguese. We all done forever. This is the area which he supposedly arrived. Sallust Point is the term that's used. What a great view. I'm up at Cabrillo National Monument, which is fantastic. People go there to watch the whales a couple times of the year, or just experience the scenery. Is wonderful. And there's also a little trail that you can head down. If you have not done that, it's just fine. And there is some military history along the way. And somebody probably know what was out there. They put in World War II, there still are some camouflage bunkers with guns ready to wipe out anybody who showed up. And this was on the bay side, and they had a lot of things that were occurring. And so they've got kiosks along the way. So it's kind of an interesting place. This is when you get down to the bottom. But the view, again, of what you're able to look at. And that's all Navy right here, but over here is Coronado. So it's not a rough hike at all. Fairly straightforward. Cabrillo's boat, and there's been a lot of press about that lately. This is what it actually looked at the San Salvador. And if you went to the airport lately along Harbor Drive, this was in work for probably 3-4 years. It's done now, and they actually launched it and took it down to Chula Vista to finish it up a little bit. And then when they had the tall sails about a month ago, and they included, this is the first time it's sailed, except without sails. They haven't finished the masts and the sails yet, and somehow they put a power into the boat. I don't think Cabrillo had one of those. One of these days the sails you're going to see it. But it's an amazing vessel. And it's very small. And of course, you remember what happened with Columbus. Those boats were about the size of this room, something like that. It's quite an amazing thing to see as well. Okay, Mission Trails, one of our gems that we have. We're up to about 6,000 acres now, and they just added another 1,000 acres, which is a new trail called Sycamore West, which is just very easy from here. And it's just east of Scripps Ranch. Wait a minute, Mission Trails Regional Park is down more in the heart of the city, Mission Gorge Road. But it's there, it's part of Sycamore. And any old General Dynamics people, by the way, that worked here back then, or if you live anywhere near that Sycamore Canyon is where the General Dynamics fired off engines regularly. You didn't want to live in that area. It was noisy as hell. That's the area which has now been added, and it's just great. It's fantastic. And then the dams, I'm talking history here. This was the dam that was put in. Still extremely popular. It just doesn't work as a dam anymore. Doesn't work worth it. I'm sorry. The kids and everybody just loves that place. Well, there's a guy named Junipero Serra, and this is the Mission de Alcala, which is original and quite old. This is Presidio Park, and that is the Junipero Serra Museum, and it's absolutely worth a visit. I've been there many times. I didn't realize how much is on the second floor. They didn't let me know when I walked in. So if you get back again, be sure you go on the second floor. There's been a brand new movement associated with this fellow, Junipero Serra. He is now a saint officially by the Pope. It was only 3 weeks ago that that occurred. That's the same guy. Now a saint according to the Pope. There was a little protest about that, by the way. Some of the locals said, wait a minute, some of us local Native Americans were not treated real well by Sarah and the others that came along. But anyway, he was the key leader. Right near here, Penasquitos County Park, and a wonderful 6 miles across and all that stuff. Wonderful. Yeah.
Quarter hour.
Got it. We're signaling back and forth here.
It was a good year.
This is the oldest?
1823.
Yeah, the oldest building still standing back from those days. And it's fantastic. And you go there on the History Day or whatever it is, and you'll see dressed up in wardrobe like they had back then. And then it's a tour. It's a museum today also. Who's been to that, by the way? Yeah, absolutely. You'll hear about the history and how to Penasquitos, which I'm going to mention again in a moment. So it's just a great resource we have. A lot of you know all about this one. What happened here? San Francisco Battlefield every year. It's a historic park today. In December, they have reenacted the battle between Kearney, remember that name?
Carney.
There's always a little disagreement with the name. I worked on Kearney Villa Road at General Dynamics, not Kearney Mesa. All right, so they have Kearney and his gang came out, but you've read the story, I have no doubt, and undoubtedly visited it. Anybody seen the battle? The reenacted battle? Yeah, well, it's just a lot of fun. You see a lot of people in old clothing, like this guy. He's one of the Californios. Because that was not Mexico anymore, and it was not the U.S. So what Polk, I think he was the president then, said, okay, we're going to send you out there. Stockton, Commodore Stockton, when they got here, he was with a ship and some Marines on board, anchored in San Diego Bay. And here comes Kearney, and they got absolutely beat up by these Californians because they were totally worn out. They had hardly any food left. They'd been months and months making their way across the deserts, fighting off Indians, all that kind of stuff. So they were pretty bad shape, and the Californians beat them for sure. A fellow named Kit Carson, by the way, was with them, and he advised Kearney, says, no big deal. Those Californians, big deal. We'll just whip right through them. Bad advice, but what much Kearney could do about it anyway. But now they've got this area that was called a hill. Remember the hill where they went?
Yeah, my name.
Your name is on that?
I helped put in those.
Hey, great, the kiosk is very informative. It's a level hike, real nice and easy to get out to from a couple ways. Well, that has a certain name called Mule Hill. Now, some of you know why it's called Mule Hill, but maybe others don't. Why was it called Mule Hill?
They ate the mules.
They ate the mules.
He had mule burgers.
Yeah, mule burgers. They were out of, the food was pretty much gone, and that's what they had to eat. And Californios are under a guy named Pico, a fairly well-known name. The governor of California was Pio Pico, at that particular Californio. I gotta get it right, for the Californios. And here's good old Kit Carson. This is from the kiosk. I just took the picture out of the kiosk. Now, what Kearney said to Kit and a couple of sidekicks is, hey, we're in bad shape. And somehow he knew Stockton was in San Diego Bay. You get over there and get them to come back and rescue us. And that's what Kit Carson did. Except his buddy, I think it was there 2 or 3, but got killed. Kit then became the only one. So it tells you here again, and here's that hill called Mule Hill. Again, these are kiosks wonderfully put together. Thanks, Pete, for helping do that. And there's good old Kit. And then heading for the help, and if you've been in Penasquitos or hiked in, almost to the falls, which is 3 miles in from either side, 15 or 5, you'll find Carson's Crossing, which happens to be exactly where Kit and maybe the 2 others made their way across Penasquitos Creek to get in to help, get the help from Stockton. And that's another name that has a certain amount of history too, as I'm sure a lot of you know. So anyway, that's Carson's Crossing. That keeps right on going, and this now is called the Cosmopolitan in Old Town. Remember what it used to be called? Casa de Bandini, a name you're going to hear a little more about. But that is right there. A lot of people totally ignore it. The end of the Kearney Trail, 1846, December 12th. So that got marked. So obviously he was swiftly rescued by Stockton and the troops. All right, so that's a little bit on that one. Here's Old Fort, now Fort Stockton, which is in Presidio. But another gang arrived, and they were called the who? Mormon Battalion. There's a marker there about the women in the Mormon Battalion, because that was the most unusual thing. Brigham Young, who had recently taken over because the originator, Joseph Smith, got wiped out back in, it was that time, Illinois or Missouri, one of them. Brigham Young came on board, and he made a deal with President Polk, because Polk wanted to get more troops out. He said, okay, I'll bring a bunch of troops out. And they agreed, but they brought women and children. This is a military battalion. And the deal was that the fighters had to pay, because they got paid, they had to pay half of it or something like that to Brigham Young. Because he was just starting to establish Salt Lake City. And that gave him the revenue to make it work. So that's quite interesting out there. They created a new museum in Old Town, really nicely about that story. Okay, who has been to Borderfield? Not many, because a lot of people don't go because it's the border and knows what's going on down there. It's a major place. As I said, 1846, again, a major milestone. See how much has gone on in that year, 1846? All right, this is the marker, the bullfight ring is right over there. And this is what the fence used to look like. And what happened then, I think I can show you here. Oh, there's that ocean. By the way, what a wonderful fence, right? Yeah. How easy it was to get across that border. That's exactly the way it was. It's just Tijuana Estuary Preserve right over there. And here is how they used to communicate. Like somebody moved over here, hey grandma, here's your new grandchild. They would communicate just like that. It was very commonly done. And then there was a protest on it. They called this Friendship Park. And again, look at the fence, very easy to see through. Maybe slip a little drugs across it. No. But there was a protest. This is a Congress member, and a lot of people on the U.S. side and the Mexican side. That fellow, anybody recognize that guy? Congressman Bob Feldner. Remember the name? Any chance? So that's an old Bob Feldner. He was the main speaker that day. Now they've done something else. This is what it looks like now. That border, they've done this huge amount of what, up to $800 million creating this big barrier fence across. I'm not sure Donald Trump and those others, they keep saying, we gotta build that fence. Wait a minute, they already built hundreds of miles of fence across, and they figured out how to do tunnels underneath. Whatever, you guys, you know all about this stuff. So this is a particular day they opened it. Weekends they do have you can get in there now and try to communicate, which isn't very easy because of the nature of the fence now. It's a little tiny thing. Well, this particular day, something is going on. As you see, the maximum capacity allowed in 25 people. So they were having a symphony concert on both sides of the fence. So this is the U.S. San Diego Symphony Orchestra. And the other side is another 7 or 8, and they are, they're performing, and they're together. So they have a joint conference, symphony across the board. So it still has lots of interesting things on it. But anyway, you see you can hardly see anything through that fence anymore. It's just tiny little stuff. So they've damaged a lot of that capability. Question, who is that? First American buried in California. Hardly any audience ever knows, even though it's real blatantly obvious here at Presidio Park. So this is the Presidio, the Necrosera Museum. If you walk right over here, you will now find this building right there, and on the side is this kiosk. His name was Sylvester Petit. Yeah, Petit was his name. And 1828 is when he died here and was buried right there. And no American had ever been in California. Well, 1828, I guess it was whatever you call it, Mexican owned, or maybe Spanish. Remember they went through this series of things, first separate from Spain, and then the French got in there somehow, and then anyway, here's the first one. But something also interesting about Presidio Park is one is the main area, and then just go down into the canyon is an alternative. Then you can hike up a little bit, getting to the east, and you'll see something up here. It's a really fun walk, and right there is this. Anybody know what that is? It's an honorary recognizing something significant. The white deer of Mission Hill is the right term. And this is a true animal showed up. And this right here says, Dee Dee, Charlie, and Mopsy, join the white deer's everlasting spiritual name, love forever. Doot, an interesting name too. So that's fascinating. And we're not talking 200 years ago, we're talking right. The white deer of Mission Hills. Balboa Park, obviously, one of our real gems, and this year is the centennial of that great exposition that was done way back then. A lot of things that are going on, that's the trouble, etc. But okay, here's just some of the scene. One of the most photographed structures in all of this place. Been to there, maybe right on the other side of the bridge, Cabrillo Bridge. Here they are. These are historical characters, and it tells you who they are and all that stuff. So the question is, who are they? The name Alonzo Horton has important. Plaza, Ephraim Morris was a key player. Whoever the third one, I can't remember. But that's more history. There's even a little bit more. We'll get to that in a second. Remember what happened here in World War II? What was it?
Military camp.
Navy rescue.
Navy, yeah, they used it for therapy type pool. That is hugely photographed. This is right by the Botanic Garden on this side, and over there. Over and over again, you see people taking shots, and that's what it was. And then you look around and see different things that did, flowers and roots and all that kind of. Who was the main woman responsible originally? Kate Sessions, and that's her statue just across there. Again, Kate Sessions is her name. Yeah, she was the original. What's the right term?
Horticulturist.
What?
Horticulturist.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. So that's Kate Sessions. They also have something very interesting every year right there. When women get the right to vote, which 100 years ago, none of you women could vote, right? No, didn't have the capability. I believe it was 1919. But every year on the date of which women got to vote, there's a lot of women and some guys gather right here. Can't remember the date right now, but I've been there a number of times. It's kind of interesting. They give speeches, they march. Some of them are dressed up as they would have been 100 years ago. So that's key. Anyway, this is her park, 8 Sessions Park in Pacific Beach. Again, one of the great views of the place, and it's very historic because that's where my wife and I got married about 3 decades ago. I was living in PB right off of Lamont, which is what gets you up there. And it looked to me like a great place for us to have our wedding day with a few people. We had some luncheon. So that's Kate. Here's what I call the troublesome spots. We got plenty of those. Remember that name by any chance? It does not. Anybody? Hatfield, not Hatfield McCoy. That was a different historical set. He's going to work. He made this deal. It was very, very dry, like it was here for a while. And Hatfield says, I can make it rain. I'm the man. And the city council of San Diego said, you're hired. Go to work. So here he is out at, as I pull these off the Historical Society. I always enjoy it. He's got a cigar in his mouth as he's brewing the concoction. And this is Lake Marina, which is where he was working. And if you go out there, that's on the Pacific Crest Trail. Also, a campground, a really nice place to visit. And they used to have a big kiosk. And last time I was there, it wasn't there.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, but then he went somewhere else. He didn't go, but the water did. It totally overflowed Lake Marina. He was in Hugh, or was it? It rained. Did he cause it, or did he not? That's always these, who knows what? That's Lower Otay Dam, and it completely broke. And the water just poured over there, broke the dam, and it flooded into the Otay Valley, killed, I believe the number is like 25 people, something like that. Gone, dead. The dam was gone, etc. So then Hatfield showed up back at the council to collect his money, right?
Yeah.
They didn't pay him, right? No. I read one place that maybe one of the councilmen says, hey, we'll pay you if you pay for all the damage that has been created. And Hatfield, I'm gone.
Could it have been, was this in December? Could it have been an El Nino, he just timed it wrong?
No, I can't remember the exact date. At any rate, it could have been. I don't know what it was, El Nino. I don't even think they called it things like that in those days. Yeah.
Among other things, it wiped out the bridge right over here at Mule Hill in Sykes.
Oh,
We got
okay.
pictures of that in file.
Yeah. Amazing, famous character here. Excuse me.
He worked the grand piano out on the beach by the racetrack over there.
That work?
It floated a grand piano all over.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah, it was a big one.
It was incredible, absolutely incredible, 1916. All right, this is Otay Valley Regional Park today, which now they've been able to get enough dams behind so that they so far hasn't broken that dam since 1916, whenever it was replaced. And it's just a lovely, lovely stroll today, and they have upgraded that a fair amount with new entries and parking. So it ends up over near the Salt Hills there. Okay, this one I'm sure some of you have visited, and the park, the whole park, which I think it's unfortunate that they didn't put the park and connect the park with the adobe, but they put a whole bunch of housing in there. And this is right next to the antique farm equipment museum. It's right there too, so it makes it interesting. Well, that's some interesting names here. Cave Couts and his wife Isidore, what's her last name?
Bandini.
Bandini, same as back there. Well, Bandini owned a heck of a lot of land, and back in there when these guys got married, and he donated that whole section there, which is Wahomie Park and that area, and that was then later they built that. And they redeveloped it like 20 years ago, and it's really fun to visit. But here's, I say, from the adobe house, Cave Couts had a little bit of history. Remember that Ramona? And she wrote the book right there. They'll tell you that, Helen Hunt Jackson.
The song group.
Pardon me? The song?
Ramona.
I'm not sure Helen Hunt Jackson did it or not. At any rate, they do have these ceremonies, and reenactments and costumes. It's really a fun place to visit. They do at least a couple times a year, but often you can visit. Now, from up there, as I said, Wyoming, to Old Town, they've got an interesting old ceremony there, particularly one fascinating, connected with a guy named Cave Couts, is this fellow, Juan Mendoza, who have been shot by Cave Couts. And the question is, now why did Cave Couts shoot him, and why didn't he go to jail? Well, Cave Couts was a high level up player, and supposedly, I'm sure he argued self-defense or something, but the story as I read it, Juan Mendoza actually worked for Cave Couts, and somehow they had this Cave plugged him, and so it's marked right there. And there's something else. So we went to the Old Town Cemetery. Now we're going to go to Mission Hills Pioneer Park. A lot of people don't ever go there. It's a neighborhood park. But it happens to have something fascinating there, all these gravestones. And one of those happens to say, this is, you can't read it at all, it says Cave Johnson House. That's his burial marker. I'm kind of intrigued as I'm watching. There's another one here I didn't realize. My favorite lady, Elizabeth Taylor. That's a fun place. This one, again, very few people seem to know much about it, but very close. Come from Penasquitos, main area off Mercy Road, that area, and walk. The waterfalls is walk west. Come back east and you'll come to something significant. It's all part of this trans-county trail. Nice little bridge. It's a good walk. It goes to the I-15, and you go under I-15, and you'll see what they've written. You can actually drive into this place from up there, and then there's a little area for picnicking or whatever. But what's historic about it? It's a trail of heroes, as they call it, dedicated to police officers slain in the line of work. Has anybody been to this place yet? Memorial? Okay.
Isn't it the Coronado Memorial Park?
Yes.
Hold on.
It's really
Yes, hold on. Here's one, 1927.
Yeah.
He was slain in the line of duty. And here's one much more recent. There's like 30 or 40 of them out there. And then there's one that says, Deputy Sam Knotts, whose daughter Kara Knotts was murdered. And right there by Mercy Road. So, anyway, that's quite amazing. So you can either walk into it or otherwise. How about this place? The Gaskell Brothers store, as they call it. What they call it, the stone store, and that goes way back again. Even before that, it was rebuilt. The bandits came across the border. Remember that story? And they tried to rob the place, except the ones on this side, the Gaskell brothers, got the word. Somehow somebody was talking too much, and they did not take over the store, which the Mexican bandits did not have them. But it's a fascinating historical place. There's a lot of others out there. It's a historic landmark, is what it says. And it came on. But boy, that area is Kempo. And very near that Lake Marina that I mentioned, and very near the border. I mean, the Pacific Crest Trail goes through. There's a county park, campground, and a railroad trains museum, which is very popular right there. Lake Marina. Camp Wildcat is not so well known, and neither is this World War II prisoners of war. So the Buffalo soldiers trained at Camp Wildcat. They were all black. There was no military, it was not integrated then. And they were training here, and then finally FDR, or the Defense Department, sent them to Europe and fight. Then they converted Camp Wildcat to prisoner of war camp. And they had a lot of German prisoners of war and Italians that were there. A lot more to that story, but anyway, that's kind of it. Aviation has a lot of fascinating history. This guy was connected with the rescue of Kit Carson and Kearney, and this kind of interest shot. There's an airport. His name is Gillespie. What's that airport out there? Gillespie Field, of course.
And he was a Marine.
What's that?
He was a Marine. Gillespie was a Marine.
Lieutenant Marine.
Oh, he was that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You guys, once you get up, you know a lot of this stuff. That's great. Wonderful. Well, it's a historical group. What else do you expect? Okay, this is something over at Coronado back in 1911. His name is Glenn Curtis. Famous name. Anybody's in the aviation world. And he created the first, Naval Air Station that the U.S. created in 1911. right there. It's right at the end where the dog park is, Beach Free Dog Park. This is not the actual wing, this is from aircraft. But the park is down there up on a hill, and that's where a fellow named Montgomery, John Montgomery, first sailed, as it says, first controlled winged pilot. Leaped off and went. He became pretty well known. And I lived near a certain airport, right off 15, Montgomery Field. That's the same guy. So we honor some of these different people. This one people don't know so much about. It's right just west of Balboa Park. I bet 99% other than the ones that live right there. There's another marker. There it is. And that says, basically, this fellow named, where's his name? Well, yeah, there it is up there. And he was an early glider, and he made his first leap right off into that canyon right there. Whoa, wait a minute. It's got a rough country. And they put that right there. That thing, honoring him. There's another one out here at Cuyamaca. We're talking aircraft, aviation here. And one particular trail, and it's the Airplane Monument Trail. Look at the data there. It's 22. The airplane crashed, and rather than haul it out, which was very heavy, it's still there. It's been there all this time. And it's a really commonly visited place. That trail is well marked. Look at anything on Cuyamaca, and there it is.
What is that? Are those boots, or I can't tell what they are? What
This
is
is all somehow holding up the engine. Maybe it's part of the engine.
It is.
It's part of the engine. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's the remnants of that. There's a few others that had that problem around here too. A few what I call the tracks left behind. This is right up here. What's a response here? I Pancho. What's the next one? I Cisco. Hey, there you go. Who are we talking about? Cisco Kid. For years and years, the guy's name is Leo Carrillo. And his family, he was the actor, he was Pancho. And that's a really nice, fun museum to visit that Carlsbad created, I don't know, 15 years ago as a park. And it's just fun to visit. You can walk around in there a little bit if you're inclined. So there's others. The family owned a whole bunch of land. And over the years they sold this and sold that. And the Leo Carrillo, I'm not sure when he died. Anyway, Leo Carrillo. There's a Leo Carrillo State Beach also north of LA. So I say it's a busy place, fun to come around, this guy leading a tour, and then somebody famous. Art Gable, probably 37, something like 1937 or so. Earl Lombard. She's from Fort Wayne, Indiana, too. My old home territory. Okay, there's a famous beach at Encinitas. What is that called? Swami's Beach. Now, why is it called Swami's Beach?
Because of that Indian mystical center on top of the bluff. Yeah.
Self-realization fellowship, and there's the guy. Try saying that fast, 10 times. Hermann, open up, Hermann. He wrote that book out of 1846. That's I think it's 1946 when he wrote. That's an error. And then Atlantic Monthly advertised. The book is still available. It's 1946. At any rate, so I wish I had a book that was still hanging in there many years later. So that's the guy, and he was from India originally, and major player. It's a great walking area too. Okay, let's see. We benefited Torrey Pines, one of our gems, absolute gems, as well as one across the way called the Torrey Pines Extension. But the real key player was this famous name, of which we know a lot, Scripps. It's absolutely one of the most visited and spectacular spots. A place where if I have relatives show up, almost always that and Cabrillo remind me about the two. We get them out there. Presidio Park itself, who donated that to us?
Marston?
George Marston. And Marston's was, again, the big store downtown in those days. They didn't have Mission Valley malls and all this stuff. And George Marston, there was nothing there. It was just standard hillside with that on it. He bought the land, he had this built, and donated, gave it to the citizens of San Diego. go forward, I was part of a lot of people who worked with his son, Hamilton Marston. And I remember being out there, environmentally concerned people, he was very much that way. Well, his father created that. And then we were protesting something, and we had about 200 of us right along Park Boulevard. We were actually protesting the Naval Hospital, taking a chunk of all and Hamilton Marston was our #1 speaker, and I was associated with him a fair amount. Back at the end of this same park that we were talking about, which is one of the probably top 2 or 3 wedding places in San Diego, the city of Park. Sunday afternoon, Saturdays, you'll often see there. This one, Wildcat Canyon Road, I'm sure you know. Anybody been out to Corona, Indian Reservation, or here, you've been there? Louis Stelzer donated that. And it's right outside of Lakeside on that road, Wildcat Canyon Road. You only go 5 miles, if that, 3 or 4 miles. It's a fabulous park. He dedicated it specifically, wanted it to be for children, people with limited capabilities of hiking. It's a wonderful place. For kids, they have a lot of events. Kids, they're going to have one coming up, Halloween. Always, they'll have stuff for Halloween and Easter eggs and all that stuff. And for the walking, excuse me, they have certain sections that are very accessible. And if you're a little more heavy duty, I guarantee you can work out because they have 2 major mountains right there too. And the trails up to those. So Stelzer, this is his main push. It's really something. Keep going out there. Oak Oasis. Anybody know Oak Oasis? You've been about everywhere, I think. Okay, Oak Oasis open space program. That happened to have been donated also, and it'll be marked out there that the Minshaw family donated that. And it got burned up real badly in the cedar fire, and it's come back a whole lot. And then you can look down, and that's the dam, San Vicente Dam.
11:45.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that a lake?
Yeah, that's a dam.
What's the dam?
It's not El Cap. What's the dam?
San Vicente.
San Vicente Dam, yeah, right. So it's a the foliage is great, the flowers are great, and it's just a pleasure. One of the Minshaw, I think it was Dorothy, just passed on recently, and I made a comment that her family donated that. One other historical thing that occurred back sort of a little bit in the middle, the original cabin. The Boy Scouts had renovated that, because it dates back to 1936. And in 2003, yeah, it was August 2003, they redid it, put a lot of, fancied it up. Remember what happened in October 2003? The Cedar Fire. Goodbye cabin, totally gone. A lot of stuff is gone. It's been totally rejuvenated. But that unfortunately happened. Cuyamaca, the same thing. Well, about 80% of that got just badly burnt. You go up there and hike today, a lot of us recovered. But you walk on, oops, there's a whole section that's still black, and some are still white, and you see a lot of the tree roots that are black. But the oaks will come back very nicely. And that cabin up there, or the visitor center, museum, totally gone in that cedar fire. It's a real disaster. This is an absolute gem. The Minshaws. Hey, another one of those right there as well. Okay, I just told you about here's the desert. Oh my God, I haven't even talked about that. Boy, there's so much out there and so many tales and stories to be filled. I mean, just all over the place. Gobs of them. One that's very current right now is Ghost Mountain and Marshall South. Some of you know that name because the son who lived there, I don't have a picture of it, but he has come out with a book with Diana Lindsay, who's written a number. She's out in the desert, especially the desert. Here you are in the Lagunas. As I say, the famous last memorable words. And on that grave marker, if you look at that closely, it's a group hiking that's out there. And you look out, this is in the Lagunas. And here's what it says. If you seek their monument, look around. So this is where they live. That particular individual buried and all that stuff. So that's quite fascinating. I call them don't miss these because they talk about the importance of history. Anybody have know what those are? We even have special ones for the horses, for the mules. Elfin Forest. So that's the book and so forth, to get out and enjoy it. But I would like to then say, oh, there's a website, it's on the, passed out to you. We got a little more time? Questions, your own observations, comments? About the
You
story?
know, one of my favorite hikes was Laguna Mountains.
Right,
It is just beautiful up there.
yeah, and still is a favorite. It's really doing great.
Yeah.
It's
It's cool up there and it's just
a bit of history, if you go up, not near there so much, but near Julian, here is Volcan Mountain. And you know Volcan Mountain?
Yeah.
Right, it's the east end of what they call the Coast to Crest Trail, San Dieguito River Park. And it starts at the Del Mar racetrack, continues all the way along and up to that 55 miles. And it's fantastic. It's been preserved, about 80% of it, and just wonderful. And then on there, if you hike up, and there'll be some kiosk markers, well, one of those says, at this location, I think in 35 or 37, was one of the alternatives to the Palomar Observatory. And they had about 3 or 4 places that they were trying to see which one was the best, and the Palomar was the one that won. And this one, they did not put the observatory there, but kind of, again, a little more fascinating. Getting that observatory telescope up was unbelievable. Yes?
Right across the valley from the mall is Sykes Adobe Farmstead, and that's the Coast to Crest Trail, River
Right.
Park, plus Mule Hill. That's a great spot, especially on the weekend.
Yes, Sykes Adobe.
With the Sunday farmer market,
Yeah, every Sunday.
every Sunday.
I
Yeah.
think, aren't they
Actually-
having a big thing today?
Yeah, they're having a, what they call the Bernardo Festival.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it's sponsored by the Kiwanis Club.
Okay.
They're gonna have it at the farmhouse.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah, that's a fun place. They, again, restored that significantly. That trail I was talking about the Mule Hill, goes right by there. And it's all level, unless you want to keep going. And then
And
pretty
it's
soon
real
it
close,
gets
too.
up and all that stuff. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and it's fun to just see it, and they have parking. And the other thing is that's a really interesting way, as he says, just east of I-15, and you could walk under I-15, and you're right there along Lake Hodges and Bernardo Mountain. And you can walk all the way down to the dam if you're that inclined. Yeah, come.
I have to be on board of the cross, the cross.
Like,
Over that.
You're talking about the one at Salvador?
no,
Different.
one in RV.
that-
Yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about now.
And it's so well done, you know, we've got it all structured. I mean, it's helped fortified.
When was that installed?
That was about 10 years ago. It's there now.
Yeah,
Yeah, use it.
What else? Comments, please?
One thing that was interesting about, that I didn't know about Leo Carrillo when I looked into him, he was an actor, of course, and he was on TV and in the movies.
Right.
And apparently, he was also an artist, a cartoonist, and a friend of the Hearsts. After he made a pretty good living as an actor, and became friendly with the Hearsts, and supposedly he was one of the people that persuaded the family to donate San Simeon.
Okay, which is now a California state preserve, or however you want to
I
say
think it was also the inheritance taxes.
it. Just a second. Yeah, some other comments or questions?
There is an interesting landmark down there in Bankers Hill by the across Maple Street Canyon that
Right.
most people don't know about. It's called the Spruce Street Suspension Bridge.
I show that on longer talks.
It's
There's a few
it's
things
an old iron suspension bridge. You can still cross from Bankers Hill over to Middletown. And it's
Why did they put that and other bridges in?
I have no idea, but it was built in, I believe, the early 1900s.
No, because the trolley was on the other side of the canyon. So that enabled the people living on the west side. Otherwise, it was really difficult to get to the trolley. Put that bridge in, walk over, there you are.
Interesting.
Long gone.
Thank you. Thank you.
What happened to the That obviously at Pioneer Cemetery, they had to dig them up. Were they being interred at Mount Hope, or do you know where the bodies are?
Pioneer, yeah, she,
Mount Hope.
Vince?
Mount Hope.
Mount Hope is where everybody was buried.
Martin.
And when they decided to make it a park, they just dug everybody, they just took away all the headstones and threw them in corners. And then there was a protest eventually, and they gathered up the headstones and took them over to the current place. But the people are still buried at Mount Hope Park, and they're unidentified. And the park just goes on. Boy, if you ever had a creeps about spirits.
I mean, the spirit of cows is
All of them, they're still there, yeah.
I suspect many of you know about the Whaley
They're
House.
still buried, they didn't dig up the bodies, they just took the headstones and tossed them in a corner. And then after people protested, they moved.
Well, down there at the Whaley House, which is right near the cemetery, and that is regarded as one of the spook places that a variety of people say, I see her up there, I see her. And they have tours, they have almost any night when you go and pay $10, and it's called the Ghost Seekers Tour or something like that. So it's a very fun thing. What I'm going to pass now is this is what I've been talking about ticklers. My book has about anything I've talked about, but not anything I've talked about yet. So my books are for sale. I also have a couple of others back there that sometimes the more mature people enjoy. I have a book my wife and I put together about Santa's Curious Elves. And it's a illustrated children's book, and it's for $15. They have a discount on it. And a lot of people have fun with that. The other one is talk about history. I just did this talk at Oasis, not this one, a couple days ago, Thursday. Now Oasis, and if you get involved with Oasis, it's not due. They have a lot of things, and North County both. The talk was based on my travels around the world only 4 decades ago, but it was the crazy year 1968. And you remember something happened in 68, like who got assassinated? Bobby Kennedy was one, Martin Luther King was another, keep going down the line. The year,
Paris riots.
yeah. And the night of the barricades, is that what they call that? I'd spent 6 months traveling around, low budget, spent $1 or $2 for a hotel, and I wrote a journal the whole time. And the idea was 40 years later to get the book out and look back what's going on and crazy year, what was I doing that year? Absolutely amazing opportunity, 6 months, 27 countries, and put the book together and looking at what is there now. Well, now I was in Vietnam. Saigon was once called, and the war was on. Remember the Tet Offensive? That's when it occurred. That year, January, I got there in April. Hardly any tourists there, imagine. Cambodia. And 3 of us, I'm still in touch with one of those fellows I met in Cambodia. And we won. 3 of us plus another 3 rented a taxi to drive us to Angkor Wat. Some of you have been to Angkor Wat. It's one of the most visited places in the world. And when I do that talk, I show my picture. There's like one person at Angkor Wat. There's nobody there.
So this book,
Why do you have to do a taxi?
Did you say you drove to Angkor Wat?
We hired a taxi.
Oh, gee, from Saigon?
Yeah, no, from Phnom Penh,
Oh, from Phnom Penh.
capital city, of which there
You
were,
must have been tired of life.
the streets were almost empty.
Suicide.
In Phnom Penh, I just was walking along, it was very Parisian style. There's these 2 fellows sitting there having coffee, they're Americans. Like what I was doing, they're traveling all over the place. One was a Fulbright scholar, and that's how we then flew in first we rented a taxi to get us to Angkor Wat. There are no tour buses going on. And again, I think I counted 15 tourists at Angkor Wat. On any given day, today there's 1,000 tourists at Angkor Wat. So then we said, okay, well, I had a ticket that was getting me to Hong Kong and included a stop at Vietnam. And so they wanted to go too. That was their intention. So we called Air Vietnam. We were now in Cambodia. They said, no, we're not flying today. Call us tomorrow. Okay, so call tomorrow. No, we're not flying today. But the third day, they said, yes, we are flying today. Come on. So we dashed, got our luggage, and jumped on that plane. The whole passenger list was 3 plus 1. One guy was a hippie guitar player, guitar. And we arrived at Vietnam. That's another whole story. If you want to hear that sometime, talk about history. It was amazing.
So much to do, so.
Yeah.
And thank you. And that book
That book is available here. Also, you can look them over, and thank you for having me up here.